Hey there. So my next guest is an OG in the game development world. He has an incredible history, and he has run some amazing organizations. He's currently running an esports organization now. And he gives us so much advice, and he really, really lays it out for entrepreneurs. Some of the major things you need to watch out for, and how to be able to grow so much more quickly. This is an incredible conversation. I'm so hyped after having had this one, and I know you all are going to love it. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Gamerpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bradford Carlton. Today, I have a very special guest with us. I have Scott Novis. Hey there, Scott. How's it going?
Fantastic. Thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Where do you hail from, Scott?
I am from Tempe, Arizona. So I'm down here in the desert Southwest.
That's wonderful. And the scorpions are just coming out of everywhere at the moment, I hear.
Oh, don't say that. Yeah, you want to check your clothes before you put them on. They love warm laundry.
Yes, shoes too.
Yeah, shoes too. That's a big one too. Shoes, boxes.
I live on the outskirts of Vegas, so we get tons of scorpions. I understand how it goes.
So if you're curious, audience, a black widow will take down a scorpion. We have photographic evidence. So that's who wins that battle. Good
to know. I don't think I have those here. I did grow up in California, not here. I'm grateful not to have the spiders. I'd rather have the scorpions. Okay, so Scott, I normally don't do a lot of fluff on this show. That's probably the most I've done in a while. Why don't you begin just by telling us a little bit about yourself, please?
Okay, so my 1-minute resume, I have 2 engineering degrees. I was a video game executive for 20 years. My gameology is 15 published titles, about 20 million units sold. I am a former vice president of the Walt Disney Company. I started their Fall Line Studios. I left to start gametruck. So for the last 15 years, we have a national franchise that's been entertaining millions of children with video games. And I jumped into esports about 3 or 4 years ago when we started seeing the incredible impact our coaches were having on the kids at parties. The kids never forgot it. I got a letter from a mom it was our first year in business. Her son still remembers the party. And I told my partner, I'm like, I think we should be working with kids more than 2 hours a year. And so I'm here today talking about Bravest Esports, and it is our esports company and the work we're trying to do to create stronger communities, because I don't know if you're aware, Brad, but by 11 years old, 70% of kids are falling out of team sports. And we know where they're ending up. They're ending up in video games. And the sad fact is a lot of them end up isolated. We'll never introduce you to somebody you don't already know that could walk over to your house and meet you. It's too dangerous. So we introduce you to people that are very hard to actually ever meet in person. And we protect all this private information so you don't know if you're meeting a 20-year-old or a 12-year-old. And we want to work on programs and work with communities where you get to meet people you could actually hang out with. The way we like to say it, we want to create an environment where you could make a friend.
I love that. Oh, beautiful. Okay, we got a lot to talk about. I want to talk about Bravest. Before we do that, though, I start every interview with a single question that's going to ask you just like I ask everybody else. Okay, Scott?
Awesome.
All right. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, how weird are you?
How weird am I? Oh, probably a 9. I'm just inside of not getting in trouble. Not quite weird enough to get in trouble, but I'm probably more... I don't know. It's a self-assigned scale, right? Yes. So in my mind, I could go a little weirder, but I'd get in trouble. So I go as far as I can and keep it safe.
I'm right there with you. Within the confines of my home, as weird as I possibly can be. My family runs it in hiding sometimes, but that's beside the point. Okay. Now, Scott, this is the Gamerpreneur podcast, so I do need your gaming cred before we go much further. I know you have an extensive history on the business side, but when did you first start playing video games?
Oh boy. Well, my first exposure was Asteroids at the Chinese restaurant across the street from my high school, and followed by Dig Dug and Tempest and a whole bunch of other, it was really with arcade games. I got back into video gaming with, why am I blanking on it? It was Microsoft's, it was one of the right after It was one of the first real-time strategy games. That was the one. I'm trying to. I keep wanting to say World of Warcraft. That's not it. It was the age building where you were. I'm blanking. Why am I can't remember the name of it? But for me, I'm actually terrible at Twitch games. I'm way more into either the strategy games or ones where I get a little bit more time. So, turn-based strategy games tend to be the things that I really enjoy. Age of Empires took me a second.
Okay, there you go.
So that was when I got back into when I started working at Rainbow. Age was the game that I used to wear a shirt, like a button-down shirt. I'm the president of the studio. I'm the head of engineering. I don't play games. I'm like, we're gonna make money. We're gonna make this successful. And then one late night, someone said, "You want to play Age?" I'm like, "What's that all about?" And I didn't go home that night. And I came back. I started wearing T-shirts to work like everybody else and shorts and chilled out. And we made some great games and had a lot of fun.
You try to get away and it sucked you right back in. All right. What do you play today now, if anything?
It's really interesting. I was playing Fire Emblem. And then I just stopped because we got super busy. And then we did a chess tournament. And you're like, chess? And we managed to track down a professional chess commentator, which was awesome. The guy's phenomenal. And we run one in-house. We're like, okay, how does this work? So we do a lot of weird things as well. Like, we're all about, if people want to get together and play, we're going to make it entertaining and engaging. And so the two games I played most recently are Among Us. So we'll do an Among Us tournament. You're like, that's not an esport. I'm like, I don't care. You have fun, do it. And chess. And we ran this chess tournament. I'm like, how do I not understand this like 2,000-year-old game or however ancient it is? Like, I got to figure this out. So I've actually been playing a lot of chess lately, which is weird. So I picked it up in my 50s.
Oh, that's fantastic. Do you have the giant instruction manuals? Not the little cheat guides and like.
There has to be more data for chess than any other game in the world. There's more podcasts, more books, more. It's nuts how much information. It's overwhelming. For me, it was more. There's a couple of great apps on your phone, and next thing you know, it's like, oh, it's about this. So, and since I like turn-based strategy, it was like, got it. Now it's clicking for me. What's engaging about it?
For sure. I think the best trick I ever learned in chess is the pass pawn. Like, no one ever knows that
right.
one. And then as soon as you know that, you're like thrown at, and they're like, you can't do that.
Surprise. You lose.
One more gaming related question, then we'll get on to the business side of stuff. If you had to pick one game, and you've had the gamut of basically everything that's been available, if you had to pick one as your all-time favorite, which one would it be?
The original World of Warcraft, when it came out in the early aughts, 05, 06, had a special place in my heart because they did a couple of things that were absolutely amazing. Like, on really pathetic hardware, they rendered an absolutely gorgeous world. It was open, and the original architecture drove people together. Is that you were encouraged to play together and support each other and help each other. And so I ended up making a lot of friends and connections. And then it was the first game that did pets really well. And so the whole idea of having a hunter and a pet, it was like they did so many brilliant things that connected you in emotional ways to the game that were countless hours were played on that. And, I played recently. I showed it to my daughter. I've introduced my kids to it, and it changed quite a bit over time. But that little magic window for me was like the perfection. And it was also that window when I think the Lord of the Rings movies came out. So all of a sudden you're like, we're in that world and we're playing it. We're living it with other people. And for me, it predated some of the really awesome like Discord and TeamSpeak. So it was a lot of chat. And I got to be honest, my chat time personality is way more entertaining than my real time personality. Give me a beat and I can be pretty pithy. But if I got to answer live, it's like, I don't know.
You're doing fantastic so far. All right, Scott, let's get over to the preneur part. You already gave us a little bit about your professional background, but how about you kind of go through your history and how you got to where you're at, and what you bring with you to where you're at today?
Oh, no, thank you. So I grew up in Detroit, and I had this vision that I watched the auto industry get decimated by Japanese cars. And so I'm a child of the 70s, 80s, and I watched American manufacturing just wither. And I thought, I want to do something about that. And so I had this grand intention of getting an the Masters of International Management. I wanted to understand what's happening. Like, why are my uncles unemployed? Like, what's going on? So I went and got an engineering degree, and then I ended up getting the job I thought I needed the master's degree for. I got a job working overseas, and I lived, got married, went to England, came back, worked at Motorola, and got bitten by the software bug in that we're making semiconductor, we're making phones, like we did the parts that make your cell phone work. So the radio stuff. And it was an amazing experience. And that's where all my patents came from. I did a lot of work in displays and graphics and the early cell phones. But I thought, we have this piece of magic wrapped in ceramic and gold, and people only want to pay $50 for it. Microsoft throws out Word. You don't even own anything, and it's $500. I'm like, I want to be in that business. How are they doing that? They have no cost to manufacturing. And then I saw video games and went, there you go. That's it. Graphics, software, all of it. And through a connection, I ran into somebody that had one of the principals of Rainbow, they needed a manager. So I joked, my first job in video games is I ran daycare. It was 12 engineers drinking Jolt Cola, making like $19,000 a year, living at the studio making Motocross Madness. And I came in and just went, well, let's organize it a little. And then it became these brilliant people. And I'm like, I'll just clean up. You guys do the brilliant stuff and I'll meet with people. We'll try to put processes in place. And then we started selling more games and hiring people and growing the studio and staffing up. And ATV Off-Road Fury was, if anybody remembers that gem, that was an anchor product. That was the one. It sold 10 million copies. It was huge. It was the biggest original title I ever worked on. And we learned a lot about gaming. Fast forward, THQ buys us, studio blows up. I mean, we got an acre of development. And it was one of those executive merry-go-rounds. It was my turn to get off. And I'm like, oh, there's an exit? So I left. Disney picked me up. Started their studio, and somewhere along the way, I thought, man, I'm going to end up never seeing my kids. And I joke I got into gametruck because I was unemployable. And what was unemployable about me is I did not want to work for anybody else. It's like if I'm going to bet on any idiot, it's going to be this one right here in the mirror. So I started this crazy thing with my brother. And I got lucky. It worked. I was right about some macro trends, that pictures of missing children on milk cartons scared a generation of parents and then having to know where their kids were at all time. And young boys had the option of laser tag or bowling for their birthday. And I went to the Pizza Arcades. They were terrible. The games were 15 years old. I'm like, we could do so much better. And it was like that, the whole thing about whether it was Dig Dug or whether it was Defender, I was playing the best games with my best friends. And I'm like, that's the environment we wanted. And at that era, 2005, it was Halo. Halo was the game changer because they're like, oh, we can link 4 Xboxes together and 16 of us can play this game. We may never leave. And that was the experience we had in the studio. It was like 4-player console games. And so an engineering constraint that came together was I need low power and one niche in legal. So this is part of being an entrepreneur, is when you find where the law helps you. Thank you, Nintendo. Thank you, Blockbuster, forever. Because the same forces that caused me to go try to learn how to compete with the Japanese, remember in the 80s, the Japanese were buying everything. Blockbuster sued Nintendo because they wanted to rent out video games. And Nintendo said, you're not allowed to do that. And Blockbuster took it all the way to the Supreme Court. And what was ruled is if the software only runs on your hardware, the license doesn't count. It's part of the hardware. Just like the BIOS inside your VCR, DVD player, whatever, you own it. It's personal property. And so that allowed people to rent console video games. We're like, done, we're in, let's go. And that's been contested many times, but honestly, GameFly, a lot of companies have still said nobody really fights it. But that was the window that we can go do this. We don't have to go negotiate license deals with every single, because we're not going to run PCs. We're not like a LAN store. That took off. And so we ended up with trailers coast to coast. We really started franchising in 2008. And we're here today, 10 million kids later, 300,000 birthday parties, and a bunch of great dedicated owners that just love to, make kids happy. And we do a lot more than just video games right now. But I moved into Bravus, like I said, and we started expanding out about human connection. Like that became the big thing for me was, how do you connect with people? Can we use video games to achieve positive outcomes in people's lives? Not just like all the fear mongering that happens. I get it's good headlines and it's great clickbait, but the science says that games can do a lot of good. And so that's what we're trying to do.
That is an incredible story. I'm so glad to have you on my show. Okay. Now, what was the impetus for Bravus? What made you decide to start that? Was it one particular thing or just kind of?
Yeah, no, it was one very very specific thing is two things in conjunction. So here's the short answer. I got my hands on a Nintendo Switch early. We have a partnership with Nintendo through gametruck. Phenomenal partners. Love that company. Very aligned in values about caring about people and putting out quality product. And they're amazing. And so we had early access to, because we did a promotion together. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, wait a minute. They made some really smart decisions. So think about the Switch, right? It is, controllers are built in, battery operated, it's got its own screen, and it was the Wi-Fi capability and supporting it ad hoc. I don't need the internet to link people together. I could take this anywhere. And now the longer story is we were watching all this esports and we were watching Smash tournaments, and they were holding them at a casino. And the kids couldn't get in. We're like, you got to be kidding me. This is ridiculous, but it's a casino, could be gambling, kids are not allowed. And I'm like, you're missing an enormous opportunity here. And so if there's an esports scene for Smash, and now I've got a portable unit that can play Smash Brothers, we got something interesting here. And so one of the limitations of the game trailer is it doesn't go inside. It is the party. It's a Happy Meal. And so whatever you hire it to do, you get a Happy Meal. You want a catered meal, we're bringing you a Happy Meal. You're starving, we're bringing you a Happy Meal. And there was this market we couldn't get to where gaming would be part of the event, not the only event. And gametruck's amazing when it's the event. And big outdoor events it can attach to, but if people are inside, we need something different. And the Switch opened the idea for something we called Gameplex. And that was like, I'll bet we could run leagues and tournaments with this concept. And that started Bravus. As we started with Smash and we started with Mario Kart, and we started running programs and said, I think this will work. We could coach kids to be on teams and compete with each other and they'd have fun. And when we partnered with Dave and Buster's up at Desert Ridge in North Phoenix, we started really getting some traction. And like so many stories, it ends with, and then COVID.
I get you. Okay, Scott, this is so cool. I'm so glad you're able to share this with us. Now, I've had entrepreneurs on big and small, and it's pretty clear that you're on the bigger side of things. I feel
like we're tiny, but that's okay.
Oh, don't we all though?
Right.
On that note, what is it that you do day to day? Because someone who is a one-man band, they wear many hats. Are you a many hats kind of person, or are you more laser focused?
Great question. When early on I was, and there's so many mistakes. I could talk to you about entrepreneurship for a long time of lessons learned. Like you work in the video game industry and you learn how to work hard. Like you get a regular job and you think you work hard, then you go make video games. And when people's passion is unleashed, you realize, oh, going home's optional. You better get disciplined about going home because you will forget. And then you start your own company and it's a whole other order of magnitude up. Where I am today after 15 years of doing this is I'm a huge believer in the self-leading team. And I was really blessed. I got to work on the Cars video game. We got to work with Pixar. And we got to see, I think, some of the most creative people in the world. Certainly their dynasty of creating original properties that, like, I look at them this way as a gold standard. People love what they do. They love who they work with, and their customers cherish what they make. We should all be so lucky. So that kind of became, how do I create that environment where I work? What are the ingredients that go into that? And so the way I like to think of it is I have a self-leading team, and we try to cultivate the elements there. So my contribution recently that I've stepped up to, which is why I'm on your show, for the first probably 14 years, you would not have known I made gametruck. You would never have seen my face. It was never about me. It was about the owners. It was about the kids. I had no public presence at all. And as we shifted into esports, we started shifting into the type of work we're doing. It became important to actually have a spokesperson. Somebody out there telling our story is really, really important, because there's so many things happening in this space. And so I said, I'll do it. I'll be the face. So I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of educating. I talk to a lot of parents, and the team runs the company. And so we do a lot of great product development work. I try to sort of, I guess play the, I don't want to say the dad role, because I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody on my team, but there's sort of that, if I had a role model, it'd be John Lasseter in the back, like cheering him on, but also arguing with him, going, as we like to say, fight the issue, not the people, right? Like, well, let's wrestle the problem to the ground and contain it. But I love being wrong, because that means the best answer got out. Like, my team is like, it's this. I'm like, dang, you're right. Like, that's good news. And so for a lot of what it is sort of I'm sort of the common thread in a lot of things, but it's to make sure people know that they're seen, their work is important, but I don't have to be in control of it. But I always warn everybody, if you ask for my opinion, you're going to get it.
Wonderful. Okay. So the main thrust of my show is not just to have incredible conversations with people like yourself, but hopefully to draw or wring some advice out of you and your past and your history, that someone somewhere listening to this might go, that's incredible, and be able to run off with their business and create something wonderful. So, with your many years of experience, if you had to say one or two or three things that you think every entrepreneur has to know, and you could save them 10 years of trial and error, having to learn it themselves by giving them this advice, what would you say?
So first, I don't give advice because there's a feeling of obligation. If I tell you what to do, then there's sort of like, do you owe me letting me know if you actually did what I told you to do? So here's what I'd like to do that I think will get you where you want to go. I'm happy to do an experience share. So if I share my experience and you find any value in what I'm sharing, run with it. And if it doesn't resonate with you, feel free to ignore it. Because I think for me, that's the most authentic way to do it.
That's beautiful.
And so there's two of them. So the first one is I fooled myself into being busy. I thought if I was very busy, I was it's this old head trash thing of hard work, as if work has to be hard. And what was wrong with that for me was that I devalued where my elite performance zone was. I devalued where my genius was, because that came easy to me. So I spent a lot of time early in my company doing work I hated because it was hard for me. And I thought, I'm doing hard work. And my big learning was when I let go of the things I hated and gave them to people that actually enjoyed them. I have a CFO right now. He is one of my best friends on the planet. He loves finance. And I'm like, I love you, man, because I hate that stuff. And I used to try to do it. And I'm like, I don't have to do it anymore. And he loves it. I don't understand why he loves it. But when I could let go of that, it freed me up. And then it was the accepting there's things I'm really good at that he looks at and goes, I don't know how you do this stuff. And I'm like, it's easy to me. It's embracing your elite performance zone. And that took me way too long. And it was like one of those, I wish somebody would come on and say, hey, wake up. Do the thing you're good at that nobody else can do. And you'll find people that want to pick up the pieces that you're just not interested in. And I think the other one is I'm really trying to work on having a positive image of maturity, the absence of illness is not the same as health. So what is it to be a mature leader? What is it to be a mature? What really shocked me was how powerful a vision is. Because to me, it sounds delusional. Everybody's like, I'm a thought leader. I'm a visionary. I'm like, whatever. But there actually is, and I'll give you a specific example. And when COVID hit, we've got gametruck. And one of the things that happened with gametruck that we're working our way through right now is the vision for the ownership. I sold a lot of people you could get in the video game industry when you bought a gametruck. And I believed it. It was true. Because working in the industry, so many people want to get in. I'm like, this is a great way for people to get in. So what's wrong with that? The day you bought your franchise, you realized your dream. Now what? It wasn't just me. It was everybody in the industry, all my competitors. Everybody had the same problem. As soon as people bought the truck, their dream was fulfilled. And now they own a business. So we didn't articulate the dream of owning a business. We articulated being in the game industry. That created a lot of problems for people. And ultimately, another identification is because it was about the truck. When COVID came and it banned people from driving the truck, they didn't know what to do. Now, in contrast, Bravis was built around creating an environment where you can make a friend. What equipment did I just mention? None.
Yeah, none.
Right? It's about the effect we produce in people. And we recruited people that care about that mission of helping reduce isolation and helping people make a friend. And so when COVID hit and we couldn't show up anymore in person, one of our best clients said, can you do this virtually? And we laughed. We're like, that's easier than what we do. Yeah, we'll be online tomorrow. It was actually Monday. I remember it was today. It was March 10th, a year ago. I got that call. Harvard closed, Stanford closed. Melissa called me and goes, can you do this virtually? And we're like, yeah. Monday, we did our first virtual esport open, and we've done over 300 of those since.
Fantastic.
And that whole company pivoted into a virtual production company literally, not quite overnight, but we were running samples and tests the next day. What's the difference? It was the vision of what we do. And that was what hit me, is that my elite performance zone, telling a story, getting the story clear to allow other people to join you completely changed how much I enjoy my work, how much I enjoy my company, the relationships with the people that I have, but also the success that we create for others, because they don't have to be tied to a thing. They can adapt to become more resilient. And so I've learned that being able to articulate that your vision for other people. A great book I recommend is The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. And he has a 5-step process for creating what we call a just cause. And if you think about your business as a just cause, it will really help you. I got a lot out of that, of articulating like why I say now, it's about creating an environment where you can make a friend. It's about that mission. How can you help me with that? Because you might know something I don't know. And if you can help me with that, I'm all in. Let's go, baby. And that was something that took me a long time to put value on. It was a complete transformation, because for a long time, I'm like, who wants to hear from me? It's about the truck. And then I learned it wasn't about the truck. It's always been about people. Always, always, always.
Fantastic. And some wonderful advice. Thank you, Scott. A little more personally about you. I want to focus in on you, the gamer in business, so to speak. What makes you special? I mean, there's so many other people trying to make their way in and trying to find their angle, but like you've been able to do it not just once, but multiple times. What's your unique skill or talent that you have that other people don't?
Wow. I can't speak for anybody else. I think the one thing for me, and you get this from a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm stubborn. And I think there's this, the Marines call it an internal locus of control, is that when everything else gets down to it, I think one thing I value so much as my engineering background is stuff goes wrong like all the time. And the question is, what do you do about it? It's your response, right? And for me, it was cultivating curiosity over outrage. I tell people that I have 2 rules. One, I have yet to find a situation improved by me getting upset. I got a really broad sample set, doesn't make things better. 2, I've yet to find a situation made worse by treating people with respect. So if I can stay calm and treat people with respect, I usually find a way to navigate through things. And Ryan Holiday, another great book, is The Obstacle is the Way. I paraphrase it as the obstacle is the opportunity. And so if there's any one thing that has served me well, is being analytical or solution oriented and going, when you get hit in the face with something that sets you back and your first reaction is to get upset, you say, well, I didn't get help. So what's more productive? Get curious and start to explore the situation. And it turns out we as human beings have some underutilized, there's actually infrastructure in your head, Brad, for this. Human beings are natural explorers. Most of human history, we lived on a planet that wasn't fully explored. And we're wired to go figure things out if we give it the opportunity to do that. So if there's something that makes me unique is I'm much more of an explorer. And I tend to believe that if there's not a silver lining in every rain cloud, at least there's something curious and interesting that might be of use later in the future. And I can recommend a couple of other books that actually support that with whatever hit you in the face today might actually be one of the best things that ever happened to you tomorrow.
So true. And I know so many people who could use that advice. Hopefully they listen to this episode. Okay. Opposite of that, you're a true entrepreneur. So I'm not going to ask you about your failures because you're probably going to tell me you don't have any failures. Instead,
tons of them.
I'm actually going to say, what learning experience that has challenged you the most in your life, that you learned the most from, would you say shaped you the most?
Here's one I'll completely own. That was a huge learning thing. You want to be careful both directions about listening to attorneys. And one of my famous ones was one of my attorneys said, don't call your company, gametruck. I'm like, it's only a problem if we're successful. And it was like, we turned out to be really successful, and it has been super expensive to defend that mark. And it's still problematic today. And it's like, oh my God, I wish I would have listened to her and picked something more defensible. But at the time, I'm like, who knows if this is going to work? Like new concept are so hard to come across without big funding. Like people have to get it. And I thought at the time, I'm like, no, we're going to defend it. It's going to work. But knowing which advice to listen to and which not, at the end of the day, I still would go with listening to my heart. I think that it was still the right decision at the time. And then I'm not trying to, who knows, right? You write your history and you make of it what you make, but who to listen to? I think that boils down to, if you want to put one hat into that one thing that's still a lifelong pursuit, who are you going to listen to? Is it an attorney giving you good advice that doesn't sound right to you? Is it, you need to get investors, so you go get investors? You go, that was a mistake for me. Maybe you really need them and it'll work for you. Or maybe you're somebody like me going, no, I need to own, have clarity of vision of what I'm doing, and that's what works for me. And I think that's what it boils down to is the confidence to trust yourself. Absolutely. That's it. How do you build that, baby? That's still a pursuit.
For sure. And having had been an attorney for 6 years, a business law attorney, I appreciate you telling people to listen to their attorneys.
Well, it goes back and forth.
But sometimes not always, because they're wet blankets. I'll tell you that too.
They're there to protect me. And some risks are like, I will take that risk because I understand what the downside is. And I tried to respect, I actually have a lot of friends that are attorneys. If you go into franchising, you're going to know a lot of attorneys. And there's things where you're like, hey, this is a risk. I'm like, I understand that. But I'm the entrepreneur and we're going to take that risk. And because the reward is worth it. It's not like we're reckless. The goal is never to be reckless, right? The goal is gather all the information, minimize the constraints. I love what Ray Dalio said, right? Let's minimize the risk and maximize the benefit. And that great attorneys do all day long, do a phenomenal job at that. And that's one of those, and maybe you would second that, is you want to find an attorney you have great rapport with, because at the end of the day, that becomes a huge trust thing.
Trust is so important. Oh, for sure.
It's so important. Because you never want somebody calling you back blaming you because they did some dumb decision. It's like, you got to own the decisions you make. And I always felt my attorneys respected me, that I recognized the decisions I had to make and I took ownership of them.
Okay, beautiful. Now, Scott, on the flip side of the last question I asked you, which was about failures, what is something you're working to improve on yourself today?
Oh, that's a great one. Health stays at the top of my list. I did this great exercise a few years ago with some friends where we mapped out a lifeline, and it was like, there's not that many years left. I mean, whatever the number is, it's fixed, right? I don't know what it is, but it's not like, oh, there's 100 years. So I started shifting to an idea of someday is today. So try to make sure every day you're doing some of what you really want to be doing with the time you have. And I have reached an age where I have friends very young, too young, are starting to check out, and that's no fun. It's the only app. I have 2 apps that are allowed to alert my phone. So my messages, so if you can text me, and this thing called We Croak. And 5 times a day it updates, it tells you you're going to die. And it's and it sounds morbid, but at the end of the day, there's this sort of belief, and it's like a Zen thing of begin with the end in mind. How do you want to go out? And I'm like, I want to go out doing meaningful work with good friends. And so for me, every day is about, and now we're doing, my wife and I, this less is more challenge of how much stuff is sitting around here I'm never going to use again. Like, why am I holding on to that? Let it go. So my number one challenge is to get even more focused on the things that bring me joy and the people that I love joy, and to drive more human connection. And so we're in the process of, this challenge is crazy. I think it's lessismore.org or something like that. You start on day 1 of a month, you get rid of 1 thing. Day 2, 2 things. Day 3, 3 things. We're at day 10, and I've got my pile of 10 things ready to get rid of today. And we're going to try to get to the end of the month.
I love it. All right, Scott, this has been a fantastic interview. Thank you so much. How do people find you? How do they reach out? Where are you at in social media? Contact all that, please.
So I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram. If you're in gaming, I encourage you to join eFuse. We're checking it out. It's like the LinkedIn of gaming. It seems kind of interesting. It's new. And Facebook, you can find me there. Twitter, @ScottNovis. And I started this week a cartoon about an esports startup. It's my weird, twisted sense of humor around all the goofy things you do running a business that people look at it going, really? We think that makes sense? It's like, what if you did that at home? How would your family respond to that? So check it out. It's lighthearted and kind of silly, but yeah, you can find me on just about everything, but where I'm the most is LinkedIn.
Wonderful. All right. And as we wrap this up, do you have any final thoughts you want to share, or anything I didn't ask you think we still need to cover?
Oh my goodness, no. I wish you and your program every bit of luck. Thank you so much for having me on. It was an honor and a privilege.
Oh, no, thank you. I genuinely do appreciate you coming on with me today. All right. On that note, I'm going to remind everybody else, don't be just a gamer, be a gamerpreneur.